Breaking right now, James O'Brien has been caught lying over his threatened departure from X. Just as it emerges, he receives preferential treatment from the UK government censor, the Ofcommunists. So James O'Brien posted on X over the weekend, "Don't think I'll be here much longer, and I never need replies." Well, immediately a community note was proposed on that post saying James O'Brien frequently blocks accounts on here, therefore proving he must read replies, as he admitted to in August 2024. Piers Morgan weighed in on James O'Brien's imminent departure from Elon Musk's platform, writing these squealy wokies all running away because they just realised nobody agrees with them anymore are so funny. But interestingly, this scrutiny of James O'Brien does not extend to his show on LBC, the Labour Broadcasting Company. The Stark Naked Brief has done some really good work on this, and I want to share it with you now. They write, in response to a Freedom of Information request in July this year, Ofcom, our broadcasting regulator, revealed that between 2020 and May 2024, they've received 926 complaints involving O'Brien. You'd expect that our regulator would have investigated him at least once, but you'd be wrong. Ofcom have not carried forward not one complaint. In contrast, when Mark Steyn provoked 4 complaints for his April 2022 broadcast where he talked about the government's own vaccine efficacy data, he was found to be in breach of Rule 2.2 of the Broadcasting Code. Note, Ofcom also took the position that they did not have to investigate either the safety or efficacy of the COVID vaccines in order to find Steyn's interpretation misleading. It's nonsensical to say the least. In a recent broadcast, O'Brien stated that anyone denying Trump is a fascist is a liar. The host has reached 1.46 million weekly listeners before, and he's telling his audience that one of America's most outspoken supporters of free speech is a dictator. It is unknown if Ofcom received any complaints over this, but that could also be very easily argued to be materially misleading. Yet Ofcom is nowhere to be seen. Rafe Heydel-Mankoo. This is an extraordinary piece of journalism, again, from the independent media, from the Stark Naked Brief, because it shows you, doesn't it, that the Ofcommunists don't give a damn about materially misleading information coming from James O'Brien because it doesn't suit their political purposes. They just want to silence right-wingers like Mark Steyn, like myself, like Lawrence Fox.
Well, what a surprise that in two-tier Britain we also have two-tier regulators. I mean, this is shocking, but it shouldn't shock anyone, actually. None of us should be surprised by any of these stories now when they come out, because we see the evidence every day almost. Look, just remember, GB News was fined £100,000 for allowing our Prime Minister of this country a platform, despite the fact that they also offered Keir Starmer a similar platform, which he turned down. Yet Ofcom had no problem at all with Keir Starmer having his own show on LBC called Call Keir. For some reason, that was perfectly fine. There was no issue with that at all. You know, everyone knows that GB News is no more biased than the BBC or Channel 4. If anything, it's less biased, more impartial than Channel 4.
Absolutely.
Because more GB News viewers voted for the Labour Party than Channel 4 voters voted for the Conservative Party. But the big question is, why does Ofcom still exist? This was a creation of Tony Blair. It hasn't been there for ages. And yet again, the Conservative Party consistently have failed to reverse Labour's long march through the institutions. Never repealed the Human Rights Act, never repealed the Equalities Act, both of which could have enabled us to actually send people to Rwanda and so forth much more easily. Never got rid of Ofcom. You know, this is just further evidence of the uniparty being entrenched as the established system in this country.
Oh, indeed. Indeed. I mean, 926 complaints, not one investigation. I'm going to say that James O'Brien is a protected species because the guy pumps out more hatred, more misinformation than anything you've ever seen on GB News. Now, my position on this, though, like you, Rafe, is far more nuanced. I mean, I'm actually saying there should be no regulation. James O'Brien should be able to say whatever he wants. He should be able to spread his lies, but we should be able to call him out. But of course, the irony is you've got the left who are completely obsessed with censorship and so disturbed by free speech that they're all running off to this platform, Blue Sky. So what I'm about to show you from LBC over the weekend is gross. It's disgusting, but I just want to clarify, I'm actually not calling on them to face any state sanctions. I just think people should switch off. And the person in question is actually someone, Rafe, who, I mean, I don't think he's worse than James O'Brien, but he comes close. He's a guy called Matthew Wright. He's one of the most unpleasant men in the media. I had the disfortune of working with him on talk radio, and the guy is absolutely unpleasant, revolting to his staff members. But actually, it's his political positioning that I want to call out today. There were two instances over the weekend, so I'm going to bring them both to you, and then I'll get your reaction off the bat, Rafe. So first up, this is what Matthew Wright had to say about Britain's farmers.
Most farmers voted for Brexit. Had they not, this country wouldn't be £100 billion a year worse off as far as trade with the EU goes, and Rachel Reeves wouldn't necessarily be looking at taxing family farms to make up the difference, which ultimately, people aren't going to like the question, but it does beg the question whether farmers are simply reaping what they sowed. You can't look at the issue of family taxes or inheritance tax on family farms. You can't look at it separately from Brexit, because the costs of Brexit are hurting this country and the Chancellor's trying to make up that difference.
And he wasn't finished there. Listen to Matthew Wright. I actually can't believe I'm even going to say this. Matthew Wright compared the new US Health Secretary, Robert Kennedy Jr., to Adolf Hitler.
And stuff like that is a good thing. It's good to have people in government who question things.
Even though 83 kids died in Samoa.
Oh, let's not focus on that.
Let's not focus on the facts.
No, well, all right.
Okay.
Well, let's focus on the facts, such as how AstraZeneca has now been shelved. Let's focus on the facts that the Sackler family, the amount of lives destroyed in America because of Big Pharma.
That's opioids, which has got nothing to do with vaccines.
Let me speak.
Well, no, not if you're going to talk rubbish, Katie, because it's only a 3-hour show. We've got to have some basis in reality.
Who questions Big Pharma
right.
is
okay,
good.
Big Pharma. Questioning Big Pharma is great, Katie, but he questions vaccines, the science of vaccines, which is lunacy.
Some of what he says is good. The way he cleaned up the pollution in the Hudson River is amazing.
I'm sure Adolf Hitler was very nice to children. It doesn't mean that he was a good man, though, does he?
But first, I love the holidays. It's my favourite time of year in so many ways, but I can think that these days it's a little bit demanding. You know, all the dinners, all the gift buying, all the planning. And as I get older, I will admit that I tend to burn out a little bit quicker each festive season. But not this year. I don't plan to burn out at all. Because while getting older is inevitable, feeling older isn't. As we get older, our body's ability to create energy declines, but recent scientific discoveries have found we can actually increase our energy levels in our cells by taking something called NMN. NMN has been shown to increase energy and endurance, activate our body's ability to burn fat, enhance mental function and health, improve blood pressure, regulate blood sugar levels, and support many other health markers. Finding high-quality pure NMN is hard, so I use Verso. They conduct third-party testing for each batch produced to guarantee you get what you paid for. It contains the highest quality NMN and other research-backed ingredients that have been shown to increase energy levels and slow down aging. After taking Cellbean for some time, I feel like a younger version of myself. I've noticed more energy, enhanced endurance, improved cognition, fat loss, better sleep, and if I do get a cold, I recover faster. So click on the link in the description on YouTube and Rumble, or head on over to buy.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken at checkout. You will save a whopping 15% on your first order. So I'm just going to repeat the address: www.buy.ver.so/outspoken. Use the coupon code outspoken. I mean, absolutely nuts. Bev Turner, who's also had the misfortune of working with Matthew Wright, posts on X, the definition of unintelligent is someone who refuses to learn. I'm ashamed of the media in this country when I think that this putrid fool was once one of our most prolific newspaper journalists. How can someone with such a closed mind have such a platform? He's clearly learned nothing. Rafe, I mean, again, let me just stress, I'm not calling for James O'Brien to be taken off air or to suffer from any type of state sanctions. But I mean, this is the type of hate. And this is the type of, I mean, I hate actually the term misinformation. I'll just call it as I see it. These are the types of lies that we see spread from LBC every single week.
It's the hypocrisy, it's the double standards here. I mean, James O'Brien and Matthew Wright are they're the grand poobahs of that sort of most insidious type of vainglorious pseudo-intellectual, snobs who are completely vindictive to anyone that they regard as being the opposition or the enemy, and so convinced of their moral, and intellectual superiority that they just condescend, as you heard there, and as James O'Brien does all the time, condescend and patronize anyone who contradicts them. And, they're keen to leave X and go to this blue sky because they think that X has now become an unpleasant place. Far more unpleasant place is the LBC studio. The way that James O'Brien and Matthew Wright humiliate anybody who calls in with a contrary viewpoint. I mean, the level of intolerance that is shown there puts any of our posts on X in the shade. And yet, of course, they can't see any of that. The reason that we're having this great exodus to blue sky is because they simply can't handle free speech.
Yes.
They want a platform that censors. And actually, it's been reported now that Blue Sky has had a record number of blocking of harmful content. One person posted that there are only two genders, just for stating that biological fact was blocked. That's the sort of world that people like Matthew Wright and James O'Brien want.
The censors of Blue Sky are unable to keep up. Now, by the way, I'm not going on Blue Sky. I have no interest on being on an anti-free speech platform, on a pro-censorship platform. No thanks. It also sounds a bit degenerate. Let me share you this post. Which was someone who was trying to talk up Blue Sky, but it just made it sound horrendous. David Abbott wrote, Blue Sky was a haven for marginalized communities before the exodus from Twitter. The LGBTQIA+, black, sex workers, and furries communities were here early. They found a place where they could be themselves without judgment. So it sounds like all of that's fine, but if you go on and express a view like, as Rafe says, that there's two genders, you're immediately booted off. Chris Packham is also heading to Blue Sky. He released this video.
It's grey sky up there. It's very grey, to be quite honest with you. But I've moved to Blue Sky. I've opened an account. I'm going to be posting on there as well as I'm posting on X for the time being. So log on to Blue Sky and find me on there for all the latest news about what we're getting up to and what's happening in the world that's both good and sometimes not quite so good, but we're going to fix it.
Oh, goodness me, Rafe. Even more reason for me not to go. I mean, these lefties are pathetic, aren't they? They are utterly pathetic. They were completely happy being on Twitter when Twitter was their left-wing echo chamber. X is not a right-wing echo chamber. It simply allows us to be there like they are there, and they cannot handle it. And this is why they lose elections around the world.
Precisely, they're so out of touch. I mean, where have the people on the left been protesting about being censored and blocked on Twitter? You never hear anyone say on the left saying that they were actually banned from X, do you? It is a genuinely legitimate free speech platform. And that's what terrifies them, because they want another Facebook, they want another Instagram, a place, where unpleasant truths are silenced, a place where reality is subverted. It's sort of a la-la fantasy land they want to live in, a state called denial, if I can put it that way. So we must, thank God for Elon Musk and X. But I'm just curious as to how long it will be before they come crawling back to X when they realize, of course, that there is no greater platform for spreading your message. And so I think many of those people will actually end up inevitably coming back onto a platform like X. And we just all have to actually thank God we do have that, because if it wasn't for Elon Musk giving us the unadulterated full news rather than the curated versions of the news we get on mainstream media and elsewhere, we wouldn't know any of the stories we've been discussing today.
Totally.
Regarding Southport and so forth.
Totally. Well, think how hard it was for me to do my job during COVID, for example, when I would try to talk about the lab leak or masks not being effective, whatever it was. And I would be censored from one big tech platform to the next. And sometimes it meant actually that you were too nervous about having these discussions because you wanted to maintain your platform for obvious reasons, because otherwise you were out of the discussion altogether. So no, thank God for X. But I promise you, I have no intention of going to Blue Sky. I will not go to a platform that believes in censorship. Now,
How long would we last anyway?
Yeah, well, indeed. They would probably get rid of me before I had a chance, actually. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.